Rain teased the Lagos sky without landing, the kind of humidity that made hair frizz and tempers soft. The fine and applied arts building breathed out the smell of paper, gum arabic, and machine oil from the ancient sewing labs on the ground floor. Adanna stood at the doorway of Studio B with a tote bag pressed to her ribs, pattern paper, a sketchbook, a pencil case that zipped reluctantly, and a pair of second-hand kitten heels she had polished until the leather remembered its former life. Inside, Faustius was staking territories, front-row note-takers, back-row laughers, the scattered middle who wanted invisibility. Adanna took a side seat near the windows, where the light fell in a long square on the concrete. She liked seeing where shadows went. She'd learned that most beauty lives in edges. "Seat taken," a warm baritone said. She glanced up. He was the kind of tall that turned heads without trying, crisp white shirt, which that didn't have to declare itself, the soft confidence of someone who'd never been told no without it turning into a different kind of yes. He smelled like cedar and new leather. His smile was immediate, and so was the glint behind it. "Go ahead," she said, tucking a kale behind her ear. "I'm Tobkai," he offered, sliding into the chair. "Industrial design." "Well, industrial adjacent. I do fashion for fun." He made fun sound like a yacht. "Adanna," she said. "Fashion design for real." "Nice," he said, eyes falling to her tote, then the shoes. Something like curiosity shifted to amusement. "Vintage." "Pre-loved," she corrected lightly. "Same difference," he murmured, still smiling. "You must know the best deals at Yaba Market." "Respect." Before she could reply, the studio door shut with authority. Professor Bankole strode in, navy blazer despite the heat, horn-rimmed glasses, close-cropped hair flecked with gray. He wrote Bankole across the whiteboard in block letters as if the name itself were a design element. "Welcome to Design Foundations," he said, voice even. "In this course, you'll learn discipline before aesthetics, logic before flair. If you're here for applause, the theater is down the hall." A ripple of laughter. Tobkai leaned back, utterly unbothered, twirling a mechanical pencil like a drumstick. Adanna felt her shoulders settle. She liked the way the professor moved, economical, precise, like a tailor who measured twice. They began with observation sketches, the crumpled paper on their desk, a hand, a shoe. Adanna's pencil found rhythm, the kind that smoothed the noise in her head. She drew the heel and its tiny scrapes honestly, not hiding where but making it look intentional. She added a stitched line, a suggestion of reinforcement, her mind already redesigning the thing she owned. Tobkai leaned sideways. "You draw like a factory camera," he said. "No filter." "Thank you," she said, because to her it was one. He chuckled, as if she'd told a joke. "You'll like Lagos Fashion Week then. It's coming. Lots of cameras." "Maybe one day," she said. "Oh, just come. My mum knows people." He flicked a glance over her outfit. "We'll find you something less archival." She looked at him properly then, the perfect hairline, the easy mouth, the eyes that assessed and ranked. Charming, yes, but like an expensive perfume, it lingered slightly too long. Class broke into chatter when the attendance sheet went around. Chisholm slid into the seat on Adanna's other side, breathless and grinning. "Girl, you made it. I thought the Danfo swallowed you." "Almost," Adanna laughed. "The conductor wanted to charge me for my sketches." Chisholm's gaze flicked to Tobkai, and held. "Hi," she said cautiously. "Hey," he returned, and then, to Adanna, "See you around." He was gone before either could answer, a small orbit that knew its gravity. Chisholm watched the doorway. Him. N. "Be careful." "Why?" "He's the type that says no offense before throwing the first punch," Chisholm said, voice low. "Pretty boys with sharp tongues. They trend, they don't build." Adanna smiled. "I build." "I know," Chisholm said, softer. "That's why I'm warning you. Builders attract tourists." They bent over their lines again, splinters of laughter pricking the air. When Professor Bankole stopped at Adanna's desk, he didn't smile. He tapped the paper with the back of his pen. "You see form," he said, "but don't worship it. Ask what function demands." "Yes, sir," she said. Bankole moved on. Chisholm squeezed her wrist under the table. "Translation, he likes you." "Translation," Adanna murmured, "work harder." Outside, the sky finally committed, dropping a thin sheet of rain that made everything glisten. They stood under the corridor's overhang, watching campus switch to grayscale. Tobkai cut across the quad with two boys who laughed too quickly at what he said. He didn't look back. Chisholm nudged her. "You don't owe everybody your attention." "I know," Adanna said. She pulled her tote higher on her shoulder. She didn't notice it then, the first thread pulled loose by a smile that cost nothing. She only knew she was here to learn, to make, to turn cloth into language. And that some people talk like they own the dictionary. The week warmed into routine. Between foundational drawing, textile science, which smelled permanently of steam, and draped silhouettes on aging mannequins, Adanna built a schedule with room for breath. She and Chisholm ate a mala in the student canteen, made lists of patterns to try, stitched late in the dorm until the power blinked out and they worked by torchlight like conspirators. On Thursday, the studio buzzed with the familiar pre-crit tension. Critiques were a Lagos sport. You learn to listen, not bleed. Today was shoe studders. Pencils had to prove they understood weight, balance, and story. Tobkai arrived 5 minutes late and perfectly unruffled, a black tee tucked into tailored trousers, the kind of effortless that had effort hiding all over it. He dropped his folder on the desk, then looked down, theatrically surprised. "Ah, Adanna, you brought your famous shoes again," he said loudly, pointing at her kitten heels. Heads turned. "You know those shoes have more lives than a Nollywood actor. Season 1, Season 2, Season." Laughter, quick as dry sticks catching fire. One of his friends added, "They are vintage, from the colonial era." "Careful," another chimed in. "If you stare too long, you might see your reflection and your past mistakes." The studio fed on laughter. It made the novice feel temporarily brave. Chisholm's jaw set. Her hand slid to Adanna's forearm like an anchor. Adanna felt heat rise from her chest to her face, a bloom that threatened to show through her composure. Anger would have been easier. Humiliation was sour, complicated, sticky. She exhaled slowly. "These shoes walk me to class," she said finally, voice steady. "They've never missed." A few chuckles softened. Tobecha's eyes registered the comeback, minimal, precise, refusing the invitation to brawl. He lifted his palms in faux surrender. "No vex. We're just catching crews." Professor Bankole's voice sliced in. "This is not Third Mainland Bridge traffic. If you came to catch crews, go to the lagoon." Silence thudded. Bankole's gaze landed on Tobecha's group and held, then moved on. The critique rolled forward. Students pinned their sketches. The whiteboard became a crowded sky. When it was Adanna's turn, she pinned without shaking. Her sketches, 3 angles of the same heel, showed the worn sole, the uneven bend of the leather, the suggestion of a redesign. Curved strap, reinforced heel counter, a subtle beadwork echoing sucker motifs. Bankole stepped close, considering. "You did not flatter your object," he said. "You told the truth and then imagined a better one. That is design." He pointed to her line work. "This transition, remember it. If you can make function look like grace, Lagos will pay you in attention and actual money." A murmur, not applause, but its cousin. Later, while everyone packed up, Tobkai lingered. "Oya, winner," he said, voice low now, almost sincere. "Nice lines." "Thank you," she said. It wasn't absolution. He tilted his head. "You took it well." "Took what?" "The banter." "Banter should punch upward," she said. "Otherwise it's just bullying with better shoes." Something like surprise flickered. Then the grin returned. Practiced. You're interesting, Adanna. People are, she said, swinging her tote onto her shoulder. In the corridor, Chisholm exploded. Are you okay? I swear I nearly used my scissors like a priest uses holy water. I'm fine, Adanna said, and almost believed it. He wants attention. Let him buy his own. They walked under the jacaranda trees that refused to be dusty, purple flowers making drama out of ordinary concrete. Students trickled past, laughter and the jangle of keys, a campus endlessly renewing its noise. Somewhere, a hawker's cry threaded the air. Pure water! Pure water! Chisholm bumped her shoulder. Promise me you'll never absorb his nonsense. Promise, Adanna said. But that evening in the dorm, when she unbuckled her shoes and set them gently by the door, she stayed a heartbeat longer. She ran a thumb over the scuff near the toe, thinking how easily a single comment can turn a fact into a flaw. She reached for a brush and polish, and worked until the leather swallowed light again. Down the hall, someone practiced scales on a borrowed keyboard. Outside, generator hummed with crickets. Adanna spread her sketchbook and drew fast. Slip ONS with recycled rubber soles, heels with adjustable straps for wide feet, sandals styled after Ula symbols but engineered for Lagos rain. She wrote notes in the margins. Beauty that doesn't ask permission. Glamour without pain. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Toby Hay. Saturday, bar 19. You coming? A winking emoji. She locked the screen without replying. She had no time for the kind of party where people collected faces like business cards. She had work to do, and a self to keep intact. Saturday cracked open like a mango, gold bright, sticky with possibility. The campus was quieter. The weekend always sanded the edges off the noise. Adanna and Chisholm claimed a corner table at the canteen, trays heavy with jollof that gleamed and fried plantains that had obeyed the oil. Chisholm stabbed rice with unnecessary energy. If I ever catch that boy alone. Leave it, Adanna said, smiling. Your spirit is hot. My spirit is correct, Chisholm huffed. You know people like him. They treat girls like accessories, friends like props, the world like a mirror. He's not my world, Adanna said. He's a passerby. Chisholm leaned in. I've heard gist. Last semester he did that thing to a girl in architecture, posted her voice note on his status so his guys could laugh. When people dragged him, he said it was a prank, and bought shawarma for everybody. Imagine. Some people use money like mending tape, Adanna said quietly. They fix what they tear without learning how not to tear. Chisholm softened. I just don't want you in his path when he's in a mood. I'm not, Adanna said, scooping plantain. Anyway, I have bigger moods, like my mood to finish that bodice without wasting fabric. They laughed. Small laughter, but it loosened something inside. After lunch, they wandered to the textile lab to borrow an hour on the industrial machines. The lab hummed with the steady authority of metal doing what it was built to do. Adanna threaded the juki like a prayer, the needle snapping down, up, down. The sound made sense. It was the opposite of mockery. Teach me that seam again, Chisholm said over the machine's burr. French seam, wrong sides together first. Trim, then right sides. It hides the ugliness, Adanna said, like a mother who settles quarrels before the father returns. You're a poet, Chisholm laughed. Or a tailor, Adanna said. But she knew sewing had taught her metaphor. To turn a flat idea into a form that could survive a city, you needed structure and tenderness. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. You ignoring VIP invitations now? Then a second text before she could reply. It's Tobkai. I'm gathering people for a design meetup next week. You should come. Connections are oxygen in this town. She typed, thanks, busy, and stopped. Deleted it. Put the phone face down. Chisholm saw anyway. He doesn't stop. It's fine, Adanna said, tracking a curve with the needle. People like him enjoy recruiting. It makes them feel like CEOs of a company that doesn't exist. Chisholm bumped her with a hip. And people like you build actual companies. Maybe, Adanna said. For now, I'm building a dress that can handle a danfo and a boardroom. By evening, they walked out into the hour Lagos pretends to be Paris. Gold light, long shadows, everything cinematic. Near the gate, a billboard shouted about Lagos Fashion Week, the kind of shout that pretended to be a whisper. Discover the next. Where the now? The models stayed down in impossible serenity. Chisholm whistled. One day, babes. One day, Adanna echoed. The word didn't feel like a wish. It felt like a calendar reminder. As they crossed the quad, a sleek black SUV pulled to the curb. Music leaked around its edges, the expensive kind of bass. A window rolled down. Topkai leaned out, sunglasses despite the fallen sun. He grinned. Of course he did. Ladies, he said. Heading to bar 19? Hop in. Let's go together. Chisholm stayed as if he'd offered a flight to Mars. Adanna shifted her tote higher. We're heading to the dorm. He pouted theatrically. You're allergic to enjoyment. Not allergic, Adanna said. Selective. He laughed at that, genuine for a second. Okay. But I'm serious about that design meetup. Investors, influencers, a vibe. You can't sew your way into the spotlight without actually stepping into light. Adanna thought of spotlights and how easily they burned. I prefer to build the light. He made a small, dismissive noise, half amused, half confused. Suit yourself. As the SUV slid away, Chisholm let out a breath. Sometimes God gives us previews of storms. Sometimes it's just weather, Adanna said. But later, in bed, between the orchestra of generators and a neighbor's soft snore, she conceded. Storms announced themselves with charm, too. Monday arrived with the precision of an alarm clock. Professor Bankole was not a man who liked flexibility where structure was due. He rolled in a garment rack and a mood board tall as a door. For your midterm, he said, writing as he spoke. You will work in pairs to produce a capsule. 3 looks, 1 concept, 0 excuses. Theme, urban harmattan. I want garments that understand dust, heat, office chairs, danfo seats, board presentations, Okada escapes. Aesthetics that forgive Lagos and still love it. He held up a hand as excitement bubbled. You will model function before you flirt with edge. Mood board, fabric swatches, cost breakdown, sustainability note, and a final mini runway in class. You have 3 weeks. He read pairs. Names fell into partnerships like dice. Then, Adanna Okoro. Tope Kayud. The room's temperature shifted a fraction. Chisholm made a strangled noise that she converted into a cough. Adanna lifted her chin. Yes, sir. Topkai flashed a lazy smile, tossed a salute. We've got this, Professor. When class ended, they claimed a corner table. Topkai leaned in, casual. So, urban harmattan. I'm thinking minimalist silhouettes, monochrome, white on white. Dust as a concept, not a reality. White is a reality for dust, Adanna said. It shows everything. What if we lean into neutrals that hide Lagos and forgive her? Khaki, cocoa, deep blues. Breathable textiles, easy closures, reinforced seams. Clothes you can sprint in if Lasma stops your bus. He smiked. Very practical. That's the brief, she said. He waved a hand. My brand is drama. Yours can be, modest functionality. We'll blend. She pulled a notebook closer. Okay. Meeting schedule. Tuesdays and Fridays after class. Saturday mornings. Deliverables each session. He raised both hands in surrender. I have commitments. Family business. Shoots. You're structured. I trust you. Just send me what to sign off. She paused. Design is not a sign-off. It's a conversation. He leaned back, stretched. We'll converse on WhatsApp. Face-to-face is better, she said. Face-to-phone is modern. Adanna measured her breath. Can you commit to at least Fridays? We'll see, he said. The phrase carried the confidence of someone for whom doors opened on we'll see. The first week belonged to Adanna. She'd built the mood board from photographs of yellow buses, hummat in morning light like sifted flour, street vendors' umbrellas, office lobbies with polished granite, dust-dulled leaves that still insisted on green. She labeled swatches, linen cotton blends, tencel, recycled denim. She sketched pockets that could hold a phone and a sachet of Pew water without bulging, sleeves that rolled and stayed rolled, hems that survived or caught a wind. She sent long messages. He replied with emojis, fire, medium skin tone thumbs up sign, sick. Friday arrived. He didn't. Traffic. He texted. Saturday morning came. He posted Instagram stories from a yacht off Banana Island. Family friends thing, he said, attaching a selfie with 3 faces that smiled at their own reflections. Chisholm watched Adanna glue swatches to foam board with a calm that was nearly suspicious. Say it, Chisholm demanded. Say bad words about him so your blood pressure can normalize. Oh, Adanna said, I focus on the parts one can control. Girl, are you a monk? Taylor, Adanna said. Similar vows. By the second week, she had drafted muslins, trousers with a hidden stretch panel, a wrap skirt that didn't fly open in a surprise breeze, a shirt with a detachable collar for a quick after-work switch. She carried them to the studio in a garment bag she'd borrowed, wishing it were tougher. When Tobkai finally showed in person, he arrived with a paper cup of iced coffee and sunglasses pushed into his hair, as if he'd wrestled the sun and won. He thumbed through her sketches. Clean, he said. My vibe is missing, though. Where's the drama? She tapped the sleeve with an asymmetrical cuff. Hey, subtle. The city gets enough drama from humans. He laughed. You and these proverbs. Try the muslins, she said. He flinched, theatrical. Me? I have a brand to protect. Let the mannequins suffer. She bit back a retort. Okay, I'll ask Connell from Textiles. He owes me a favor. Great team management, he said cheerfully, already scrolling his phone. Connell modeled. He walked up and down the hallway while Adanna pinched seams and pinned adjustments. Students peeked from doorways, nodding approval. Even Bankole paused to touch a seam, humming. Where's your partner? He asked. On his way, Adanna said, because lie or prophecy, the sentence propelled hope. Bankole's gaze was the kind that could stitch a person to the truth. The grade is shared, he said. The work does not have to be. Yes, sir, she said. That night, while she pressed creases with an iron as stain as any parent, her phone rang. Unknown number. She considered ignoring it. Picked up. Downa! A voice sang. Tobkai, too delighted with something. I just landed a meeting with a buyer who loves minimalist Lagos. I pitched our concept. His hyped. I said would send lookbook shots by next week. She closed her eyes. We don't have finished garments. Details, he said breezily. You're fast. We'll shoot something. You pitched without me. Don't be territorial, he said softly, suddenly condescending. I'm expanding our network. You're inflating your image, she said, heat finally finding her. Please don't present our work as your solo idea. Relax, I said, we. You're part of my we. She took a breath that scraped. We'll need to agree on messaging before any meeting. Also show up to the work. On, you're not fun, he said. Anyway, there's a party on Friday at the yard. Come, we'll celebrate in advance. I'll be in the lab, she said, and hung up gently, because slamming phones had gone out of style but the impulse had not. Friday evening unfurled with the practiced ease of Lagos pretending it didn't fight traffic all day. The yard, a campus-adjacent hangout that sold Chapman in mason jars and loudness by the liter, was already a river of bodies when Chisholm and Adanna arrived. Chisholm had insisted they come for one ginger drink, to stake a flag in public space that didn't belong to people like Tobkai by default. We sip, we sit, we leave, Chisholm decreed, eyes scanning for exits like a strategist. They found a small table near a mural of Lagbaja-style masks. Music thumped, the kind that vibrated ribs into participation. Groups formed and reformed, laughter looping like hooks in a pop song. Tobkai spotted them within minutes, as if his radar was set to recognize anyone who didn't look like a fan. He moved through the crowd with practiced warmth, high-fiving his way across. 2 boys flanked him. Same cologne, same angle of chin. Look who decided to exist, he said, leaning down, arms spread. Adanna the quiet, Chisholm the bodyguard. Chisholm smiled without her eyes. Hi. He snapped at a waiter and drinks materialized, red and cheerful in tall glasses. To collaboration, he said, lifting his. To the capsule that will change the face of Lagos. Face moisturizer first, Chisholm muttered. Adanna lifted her jaw with caution. Her dress was a deep teal she'd stitched last Sunday, a simple A-line that behaved. The hem skimmed her knees like a secret that knew its place. The boys started with easy gossip. Who'd been seen with whom? Who'd fumbled a pitch? Which brand had accidentally copied which? Then the conversation tilted, as it often did around men who thought being funny meant being cruel with nice shoes. One of the boys nodded at Adanna's dress. You sew that yourself? Yes. Nice. Very. Thrift store upgrade, he said, taking a long drink. We should call you Upgrade Taylor. Laughter. Not a roar, just enough to register. Adanna set her jaw down. You should call me by my name. Aye. She's sharp, the other boy said. Sorry-o. We're joking. Tobkai grinned at the group, then looked at her with what he probably considered tenderness. Don't mind them. They just don't get your brand of simplicity. Chisholm shifted, ready to exit the table with her fists if necessary. Adanna laid a hand on her knee under the table, a touch that meant, not yet. The waiter returned with a tray of drinks ordered by someone else, thick glass tumblers sweating sugar. The tray wobbled in the tight space. At that exact moment, Tobkai stood, chair scraping, and bumped the server's elbow with theatrical surprise. The topmost tumbler arced, then decided on gravity. The chapman caught the light as it fell, a ruby sheet, and smashed against the table's edge. Red liquid shot forward and then down, onto Adanna's lap, her dress, the new teal drinking a daily wage in one stain. Time stuttered. Sound gathered itself, trying to decide whether to become silence or spectacle. Then someone who'd already chosen cruelty stepped into the pause. Ah, upgrade, one of the boys crowed. Now the dress has color blocking. Laughter, sharper now. Phones lifted. The instinct to record tragedy was becoming culture. 2 girls at the next table exchanged looks that were not unkind and yet didn't intervene. The waiter apologized in a tumble. It didn't matter. Blame had already been allocated to the person easiest to bruise. Tobkai made a show of shock. Ah, sorry now. My bad. But low-key, the splash is kinda avant-garde. He said it lightly, like a DJ dropping a sample. The group howled. Someone clapped. Another voice added, concept, urban harmattan after rain. The stain spread in a map Africa would recognize. Chapman dripped from the hem with stubborn rhythm, a public clock no one could ignore. Adanna felt heat surge to her throat, the surge where humiliation turns into fury if allowed to breathe. She inhaled through her nose, tasted orange, grenadine, and something like disrespect distilled. Chisholm half rose, hands already moving toward the nearest glass she could weaponize. Adanna touched her again. No, she signaled. She stood. She didn't rush. She found the napkins and dabbed once, twice. Red smeared, red refused to obey. She straightened, smoothed the ruined front as if she were only settling fabric after a breeze. When she spoke, she didn't raise her voice. Some of us are learning to build, she said, looking at no one and everyone. Some are learning to spill. The table quieted, laughter clipped mid-flight. The sentence wasn't a weapon, it was a mirror. Not everyone liked what they saw. Topkai reached into his pocket, fishing out cash with the ease of someone for whom money was lotion. Always on hand, meant to smooth roughness. He waved the waiter over and pressed notes into his palm. He turned to Adanna, stepping closer, voice coaxing. Come on, let me fix it. I'll pay for a new dress. You can't buy time, she said. And time made this. He blinked, the script in his head suddenly missing a page. It was an accident. So is rain, she said. So are floods if you refuse to build drainage. Someone at a nearby table actually clapped at that. The sound broke the group's rhythm. The boys looked around, suddenly unsure whether they were still on the winning team. Across the room, a phone light blinked off. Whoever had been recording felt the mood tilt. Chisholm was beside her now, chin tilted like a small sword. We're leaving. Adanna nodded. She lifted her tote, heavier now with liquid and lesson. She could feel Chapman sticky against her thighs, a sensation designed to humiliate, but her back held. They walked through the crowd, which parted just enough, the music somehow louder and far away at once. Outside, the evening air felt honest. They stood under a neon sign that pretended to be moonlight. Chisholm fumed in circles. Animals. He did it on purpose. I swear. He waited. He moved. Whether or not he planned it, he enjoyed it, Adanna said quietly. Chisholm stopped, fury catching on sadness. I hate that they laughed. I hate that they needed to, Adanna said. The word surprised her. It means something in them was scared. Scared of what? People who don't ask permission to exist, she said. People who can't be bought with shawarma. Chisholm stared, then laughed despite herself, a sound that tripped and then ran. You always turn pain into proverb. I turn it into pattern, Adanna said. She looked down at the stain and traced its edge with her eye. She wasn't thinking about revenge, not exactly. She was thinking about design, about fabrics that resisted spillage, about dyes that disguised life, about seams that didn't split under pressure, about a city that would applaud you in the morning and laugh at you at night, and how to dress in a way that survived both. A danfo rattled past, conductor hanging out the side, calling destinations like promises, Yaba, Ojalegba, CMS. The world went on, indifferent and available. Chisholm touched her arm. What do you want to do? Adanna breathed in until her ribs learned new width. The answer formed with the clarity of a line your hand was always meant to draw. White, she said. Harder, smarter, louder with cloth than with voice. Chisholm nodded. Then let's go wash this thing. And then let's sew. They walked back to campus, two silhouettes crossing a road that held 1,000 stories, most of them loud. Behind them the yard spilled more music, more laughter. In front, the studio windows glowed like patient eyes. Inside, under fluorescent lights that made everyone equal, Adanna laid the ruined dress on a table. She opened her sketchbook to a blank page. A drop of Chapman fell from the hem and made a pink dot on the paper. She circled it with her pencil, turned it into a flower, then a pattern, then a sleeve detail. She wrote, "Stay a story, not shame." The line strengthened. Her hand followed. Outside, the city changed radio stations. Inside, thread found needle, needle found cloth, and something in Adanna found its vow, even if she would not name it until morning. Morning tried to launder the night and only half succeeded. The teal dress, rinsed, wrung, laid flat across Adanna's chair, held a pale, stubborn bloom where the Chapman had branded it. She stood over it with a mug of thin tea and a pencil, the way some people stand over an altar. On a fresh page she drew the blot as a circle, then made petals around it until the accident looked like intention. Beneath it she wrote 3 lines, not as a caption but as a binding. I won't beg rooms that laugh to let me in. I'll build work that makes rooms beg for me. I will not perform anger for those who feed on it. She didn't read them aloud. Ink was enough. Studio B coughed up its usual morning smells, sizing, steam, chalk, when she pushed through the door. She pressed a muslin under a hissing iron until the seam lay flatter than pride. The lab felt like sanctuary. Machines don't gossip. "Early," said Professor Bancolay, arriving with pattern blocks under his arm. His eyes flicked to the rinsed teal on the chair, registered without pity. Harmattan stains. Lagos stains. Good clothes forgive both. "I'm trying," she said. "You're doing," he corrected, dropping a roll of calico on her table. "Use this. Save good fabric for mistakes that teach." Chisholm breezed in a minute later with bread and thunder. "You will eat," she decreed, slapping a roll down. "And if that boy appears, I'll baptize him with starch." "Save your baptism," Adanna said, smiling despite herself. "Today needs darts, not drama." They worked. The vow translated itself into details: a wrap skirt with a hidden inner panel, insurance against wind and mischief, pockets deep enough to hold a phone, a sachet of pure water, and a day's dignity, a sleeve tab that locked and didn't loosen at the first Okada breeze. Once, Tobetch's silhouette paused in the glass of the door. He didn't come in. He never needed to. Attention obeyed him even when he left. By evening, the cocoa sample on the stand looked like seriousness. Walking back to the dorm, they passed two boys rehearsing a poem under a jacaranda tree. "We are the cloth and the stain and the person who learns to wear both," one of them intoned. It felt like the city was answering her page from dawn. In bed, she cued 3 short videos, hand-finishing a bound buttonhole, fusing without stiffness, the burrito method for clean yolks. Notes filled her screen. 2 millimeters matter. Press after every seam. Hide strength where eyes don't look. Her phone buzzed. "You good?" from an unknown number that wasn't unknown. She faced down the screen and slept like someone who had collected herself and put herself in a safe place. At noon the canteen was democracy in plastic. Same trays, same stew, same fluorescent honesty. Adanna sketched between bites, sleeve tabs with 3 positions, a Chapman blossom border that whispered rather than shouted. A shadow slid across the page. "May I?" asked a woman in a linen shirt the color of unbleached muslin. She sat before either of them could perform politeness. Short, natural hair, sandals that had walked real streets, the posture of someone who'd met too many deadlines to fear the next one. Chisholm shot Adanna a look, eyes wide, mouth forming a silent name. "Lawson." The woman turned pages without commentary, pausing where the blot-turned blossom repeated into pattern. "What do you call this?" "It started as a spill," Adanna said. "I'm testing how accident becomes rule." A corner of the woman's mouth lifted. "Half my job description." She closed the book softly. "Your lines are calm, not timid. There's a difference." "Thank you," Adanna said. The words felt earned. "What year?" "First." "Who taught you to see like this?" "Carpenter father, tailor aunties, Lagos," Adanna said. "And deadlines." That actually rung a laugh from the stranger. "I'm Lawson," she said, as if introducing a neighbor rather than a name with weight. She slid a heavy, plain card across. Lawson and a number. No flourish. "Send me clear photos of 3 pieces you're proud of. Honest. Not perfect. And translate that motif to fabric. If it can live off paper, it can live on a body." "When?" Adanna asked, steady. 3 days, Lawson said. "Honesty expires." Chisholm's fork clinked, her composure leaking into grin. "Thank you, Ma." "Campus breeds good work and bad habits," Lawson said, standing. "Keep the first. Teach the second to sit." She carried her own tray to the return bin and disappeared as quietly as she'd come. They ran to the lab like people carrying a candle through wind. Out came the cocoa cotton, a tough-willed linen, anchor remnants for lining where the body met structure. Adanna refined the blossom geometry until repeat looked like music, melted wax in a small pot, and stamped cloth with a hand-carved block. Blessed Chisholm's cousin in a niche and his WhatsApp patience. The first dye test bled, the second sulked, the third revealed itself, motif appearing at sighted angles like a private joke between maker and wearer. Her phone pinged, loved your capsule deck. Minimal Lagos is fresh. When can we see samples? Femi K. Consultant, Lawson Group. She replied, after midterm. Who sent the deck? The answer arrived fast, received via Tobkai U. His got an eye. Heat rose, outrage ready to flame. She pursued the better fuel, woke. Cloth under press of foot. Stitch length set with intent. Anger rerouted into precision. That night, under lab lights that refused romance, they shot lookbook images on a cracked phone with foam board for bounce and a tripod made of textbooks. Cunnel from textiles modeled without swagger. The clothes provided it. The shirt didn't cling where Lega sweats. The skirt refused to betray its wearer to wind. The trousers honored phones without bulging. At 11:58 p.m., the email flew to the number on the card. 3 images, 2 close-ups, and 1 line. Honest woke. Open to critique. She cleaned the lab till the table shone, locked her sketchbook in a locker, trust but verify, and walked home with the city's late radio murmuring don't stop under the hum of generators. The reply came before sleep, received. Your calm is not timid. Call 9 a.m. Come alone. Lawson. Still economical with syllables. 3 days became a nation of hours with their own laws. Coffee from sachets, plantain cupped in napkins, needle heat under fingers. The security guard learned her name and set a spare stool under the fan because creative work needs breeze. She chose honest pieces, not the peacocks. Look 1. Breezeworthy shirt, cocoa cotton, underarm gussets for Danfo reach. Blossom border tucked inside the placket like a secret. Look 2. Sprint trousers, high waist, angled pockets that swallowed phones without announcing them, a hidden stretch gusset across the back yoke for literal running, hem facing reinforced against Okada footrests. Look 3. Wrap safe skirt, bias cut panels, double inner panel for Lagos wind, blossoms visible only when light curved right. Between seams, she watched 30-second masters teach decades, a Ghanaian tailor's burrito yoke, a South African designer's interfacing that added backbone without turning cloth into cardboard, an Alba anti-clipping curves because cloth has feelings. Her notebook filled with stained kindness. Press every seam. 2mm mercy now saves 2 hours later. Hide strength where eyes don't look. Chisholm ran logistics like a campaign manager. Machine time, snacks, an emergency steam iron from Hole 1. At 2:13 a.m., she read campus hot takes in a scandalized whisper. Some boy on radio says girls who think they are too good for enjoyment are just insecure. Can you hear the fragile masculinity cracking? Let it crack, Adanna said, feeding cloth straight under the needle. We'll make something from the pieces. By the third sunset, stitches behaved, facings lay down, and buttons sat like they planned to stay for years. Photos. Edits that kept honesty. Send. When Lawson's call 9 a.m. arrived, Adanna slept 2 hours as if bribed. Dawn found her pressing seams till steam wrote ghosts in the air. At 9, Lawson answered on the second ring. No greeting. The blossoms disappear in soft light. Intention. Yes. Private victory at night. Confidence by day. Good. A beat. Hear me and don't interrupt. A boy sent me minimal Lagos sketches 2 days ago. Your hand. His name. I don't reply to thieves. I expose them to flaws with friction. Femi baited him. Meanwhile, I wanted to see if the hand that drew could seem. You can. Bring the 3 pieces at 4. Quietly. If the work holds, make 6 for a showcase in 3 weeks. We cover fabric within reason and handle legal. You handle discipline. Adanna's yes, ma was air and gratitude. One more thing, Lawson said. If he comes with peace, remember who laughed when you were spillable. The line died, efficient as a cut thread. At 10, Studio B throbbed with shared stakes. Mood boards multiplied like prayers. Bankole wrote Urban Harmattan in block letters, then called pairs to present. When he reached Adanna Okoro N. Tobkai Yud, something in the room adjusted its collar. They stood. Adanna carried the work. Board, swatches, 2 muslins, cussed notes printed in black and white truth. Topkai carried the kind of smile that had gotten him through doors without keys. He began with gloss. We scented Lagos realities. Dust, mobility, office fatigue. Translating accidents into motif and... Show me the accident, Bankole cut in. Talk is cheap, dye isn't. Adanna held up the cocoa square. In the window's angle, blossoms revealed themselves and then went shy. A small ripple went through the room, the sound of taste identifying itself. Who executed this? Bankole asked. I did, Adanna said. Calm, not timid. He turned the muslin inside out and hummed at the clean yoke. And this construction? Me. Costs, he said, already looking at her notes. She walked him through yardage, unit prices, minutes per step, notes on deadstock sourcing. The room recalibrated. Work has a smell, and it had filled the lab. Sketches, Bankole said, turning to Topkai with the same tone he'd used on everyone else. Fairness can feel like a stage light. Out came a folder. Pages spread across the table, the lines wrong in the way that copies are wrong. Almost. Flourishes perched where function had mattered. Shoulder cutouts that would betray a bra strap, ruffles that would catch on bus seats. Where did you develop these? Bankole asked. In lab, Topkai said smoothly. You know I'm a night worker. Adanna stayed at the bottom corner. The staple imprint, her brand of staple, bit into the paper. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Bankole stacked the sheets, squared them with a tap that sounded like conclusion. Your hand changed overnight, he said mildly, which was worse than shouting. Or your conscience did. Silence drew itself tight. Topkai smiled, the save me smile. It collided with Bankole's gaze and fell. We grade the work, not the noise, the professor said. He turned to Adanna. Leave the fabric sample with me for one evening. A colleague wants to test something. You'll get it back tomorrow. Don't post this motif yet. Yes, sir, she said, surprised at the sudden fierce protectiveness that rose in her, over a square of dyed cloth, over her own name. At 9:59, she found an empty lecture room and called Lawson. The boy is about to meet friction, Lawson said without hello. Arrive at 4. Come alone. Aye. Save your breath for cutting, Lawson said, and hung up. Adanna slipped her phone into her pocket and smiled for the first time that day, not from joy, exactly, but from the relief of clean lines. The city had handed her a tailor with a courtroom's instincts. The compound in Ikoyi refused to be impressed with itself. Lawson's studio breathed light and industry, rolls of cloth in disciplined columns, industrial machines that sounded like competence, no quote posters about passion, just work. This is Uju, Lawson said, nodding to a woman with chalked fingers and kind eyes. Patent surgeon. A second nod to a woman with a tape around her neck and a hem finishes authority. Sade. Treats edges like contracts. They examined the shirt first. Uju lifted seams, peered at the underarm gusset as if reading a secret. If you move this notch 2 millimeters, she murmured, the sleeve will stop arguing with the armhole. I'll move it, Adanna said, mentally relocating the notch. Facing is quiet, Sade said of the skate, which was the highest compliment she gave. Loud facings mean sloppy sewing. Lawson watched without hovering. The evaluation took the shape of we see you rather than we are impressed. When they finished, Lawson sat on a stool at the same height as the machines. Your work is calm without apology. Lagos will try to make you apologize. Don't. Yes, Ma. I'm sponsoring a young designer slot in a showcase. 3 weeks. 6 looks. You may use our cutting tables after hours. We'll cover fabric within reason and handle the paperwork, NDAs, simple contract. You handle deadlines. The yes lodged in Adanna's throat and then found its way out. Yes. A knock at a side door. Femi poked his head in. Madam, the boy is here. Loud early. Bring him to the small room, Lawson said. To Adanna, stay. Listen if you must. Do not enter the conversation. Through the thin wall, the scene played. Mrs. Lawson. Pleasure, Tobkai sang. Show me your hand, Lawson said. My hand. Sketchbook. Paper. Silence. The soft thud of disappointment. These lines are not yours, Lawson said, tone factual as a receipt. They belong to a person who understands seem a sentence, not slogan. With respect, inspiration circulates. Minimalism is not a license to steal, Lawson said, slicing cleanly. Find work suited to your actual talent, access, PR events, collaboration that credits and pays. Leave construction to those who love its math. Chair scrape. Pride trying to stand on a slippery floor. I meant no harm, he tried. You meant advantage, Lawson said. Not unkind, just accurate. This is a warning. Borrow another girl's work without permission and you'll meet a lawyer with sharper lines than mine. He left without his usual gravity, a man discovering that charisma can't light every dark room. Lawson re-entered the studio and spoke as if nothing had happened. 3 weeks. Can you produce 6 looks? Adanna thought of school, of the lab's fan groaning toward cool, of Chisholm's relentless care, of Uju's 2 millimeters, of Sade's quiet facings, of a city that stains and sometimes anoints. She thought of her vow, no begging, build work, reserve anger. Yes. Good, Lawson said. We'll call your slot Quiet Fire. Branding pays rent. Femi handed Adanna a slim folder, an NDA, a simple contract in human English. No predatory clauses. She signed with hands that had stitched late and trembled early. Outside, the city blared and beckoned. Her phone buzzed. Can we talk? No name. It didn't need one. She typed back, we'll talk in public where the wife speaks first. She slid into a waiting keek, the driver's radio leaking high life that made the afternoon feel survivable. As the compound receded, she saw, just for a second, her reflection in the keek's cracked plastic window, hair braided, jaw set, eyes steady. The girl in thrift store heels was still there. So was the woman making a pattern out of a stain. The road bucked, and she smiled. Lagos doesn't smooth itself for anybody. But some people learn to cut on the bias so the clothed body can move with the road. 3 weeks. 6 looks. A runway that wouldn't ask her to audition for belonging. She messaged Chisholm, it's on. The reply came with 3 fire emojis and 1 long voice note that was 90% screaming. Adanna let herself laugh, out loud, unladylike, throat open. Then she tucked her phone away and reached for her notebook. On a fresh page she wrote, Quiet Fire, 6 looks are 12 weeks work in 3 schedule equals survival. She drew a box for each day and wrote in the corners what she'd learned from the last 3. Press every seam, hide strength, 2 millimeters. Behind the scribbles, the vow from chapter 6 glowed like an underlining. Rooms could laugh. The runway would listen. And cloth, faithful, forgiving, stubborn cloth, would do what it always did in the right hands. Tell the truth and make it wearable. 2 days after the Quiet Fire deal, Adanna was in Studio B chalking seam allowances when her phone lit up with a name she didn't save but would always recognize, Tobkai. She let it ring out. A minute later, a message landed. Tobkai, hey, let's talk. I want to clear the air. Tobkai, there's a party Friday at Tunde's rooftop. Drinks, music, movers and shakers in the creative space. You should come. She stared at the words until the chalk cooled in her hand. Clear the air sounded like sweeping the dirt under someone else's carpet. Still, Friday was 2 days before she needed to finalize her first complete look for Lawson's 6-outfit commitment. That kind of event, if she kept her composure, could be useful for networking. Chisholm's reaction, when she told her in the canteen, was volcanic. Babe, are you hearing yourself? This is how Nollywood starts there. She fell into the trap scenes. Adanna sipped her malt slowly. And in other films, the woman walks in, takes what she needs, and walks out. You're going in with both eyes open. And both hands holding my bag, Adanna replied. If he thinks I'm coming to reconcile, that's his script. I'll write mine. Friday arrived with the sky painted in Lagos gold. Adanna wore trousers from her capsule, deep indigo linen, straight cut, with her Chapman blossom motif stitched faintly along the hem. Paired with a crisp white blouse and the smallest gold earring she owned, it was a statement without shouting. The rooftop was a swell of Afrobeat, clinking glasses, and that particular rooftop confidence rich Lagos kids wore like fragrance. Tobe Kai spotted her instantly. He was in cream trousers and a champagne shirt, smile wide enough to pretend history hadn't happened. Adanna, he called, arms open. You came. I did, she said, voice neutral. He introduced her to a circle of young creatives, photographers with experimental hairstyles, painters with paint still under their nails, a blogger who live-streamed the entire night. She shook hands, traded a few words, kept her bag strap looped twice around her wrist. Tobe Kai leaned in close enough for his cologne to announce itself. See? No drama. Just vibes. We could be great together, you with your technical skill, me with my network. She held his gaze. Networks without integrity are spiderwebs. They catch you, but they are not carrying you anywhere. Before he could reply, Tunde, host of the party, called for shots. The group drifted toward the bar. Adanna excused herself to the balcony, where Lagos sprawled in every direction, restless and alive. She let the air cool her neck and her thoughts. This wasn't reconciliation. This was reconnaissance. She'd mapped the players, seen who hovered near influence, and now she could leave on her terms. When she slipped out 20 minutes later, Tobe Kai didn't notice. He was busy laughing too loudly at someone else's joke. Lawson's fitting session the next day ran late, and Adanna arrived at the rooftop with one plan, a quick check-in with a potential buyer she'd met through a stylist friend. The crowd was bigger than Friday's, more strangers, more flash. She found the buyer within minutes, exchanged cards, and was about to leave when Tobe Kai appeared with two of his friends in tow. Leaving so soon? He asked, a glint in his eye that made Chisholm's earlier warnings echo in her head. I came for someone. I found them. I'm leaving, she said. But before she could step around him, one of his friends accidentally tipped a small bucket of glitter over her hair. Another splashed water from a half-emptied bottle down her back. The shock stole her breath for 2 seconds. The laughter from the group tried to steal the rest. Phones were out instantly. Someone shouted, Shiny Queen. Another voice added, Urban Mermaid. She could feel the glitter clinging to her scalp, the water soaking her blouse. Her first instinct was to wipe, to run, but she froze, lifted her chin, and smiled. Thank you for the light, she said clearly enough for the closest phones to pick up. I always shine, but I appreciate the help. Then she turned her back on the laughter and walked straight out, glitter trailing behind her like a comet. By morning, the video was everywhere. TikTok, Instagram Reels, even WhatsApp statuses. The captions varied. Queen of Shade. When your haters sponsor your glow up. Glittergate 2025. In the textiles lab, 2 second-years were re-watching it on loop when she entered. Madam Viral, one of them greeted her, grinning. Teach us that composure. Chisholm plopped down beside her with plantain chips and a grin of her own. You turned their nonsense into PR. Brands are already reposting, saying you're the face of shine under pressure. Adanna laughed softly. They wanted a spectacle. I gave them one they couldn't control. Privately, she noted the spike in her follow account, most of them from fashion circles. The glitter was still in her hair, stubborn as a grudge, but now it felt like armor. Tobe Kai sent 3 messages over the next 2 days. It was just a joke. Let's talk. You're trending because of me. She didn't respond to any. Instead, she doubled her work pace. The lab became her sanctuary, the whir of the machine, her only soundtrack. She posted no rebuttals, no subtweets, just progress shots of hems, seams, and swatches. The contrast between her feed and the gossip kept people curious. By Friday, fashion blogs were speculating, who is the mystery designer glitter girl? Lawson, ever strategic, dropped a single cryptic comment under one post, "You'll see her work soon." The silence wasn't weakness, it was stage-like control. She was letting anticipation do what anger could not. Lagos Fashion Week's prep day was chaos disguised as glamour, models darting between fittings, assistants carrying garment bags like newborns, makeup artists creating miracles in bad lighting. Lawson's section was an island of order. 6 mannequins stood dressed in Adanna's creations, indigo trousers, cocoa skirts, shirts that whispered blossom motifs only in the right light. "You'll open with look 3, Lawson said, not looking up from a clipboard. "And you'll take the final bow yourself." Adanna's heart stumbled. "Me?" "You built it. Stand by it," Lawson replied. By the time the doors opened to the press preview, the space was packed. Somewhere in the crowd, Topkai leaned against a wall, flanked by friends, uninvited but present. Adanna caught his gaze, held it just long enough to register recognition, then turned to adjust a model's sleeve. This was her runway now, and she wasn't walking it for him. The lights dimmed to a low amber hum, and the announcer's voice rolled over the crowd. Opening tonight's Lagos Fashion Week showcase, introducing Quiet Fire by emerging designer Adanna Okoro. Backstage, Adanna steadied her breathing. Her palms were cool. Odd, considering she'd been ironing sleeves until minutes ago. Lawson stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes scanning the runway like a general reviewing her battle line. From the shadows, she peeked at the front row. Buyers, influencers, stylists, a few celebrities in sunglasses they didn't need. Then her eyes caught on a cluster mid-row, Topkai, leaning back with casual arrogance, his 2 constant sidekicks, and a girl she didn't know. He was laughing at something on his phone. He hadn't looked at the program. He didn't know she was the headliner. "Ready?" Lawson asked. Adanna nodded. The music began, a slow, percussive beat led with strings. The first model stepped out in the breeze-weather shirt and sprint trousers, the Chapman blossoms whispering at the hem. Gasps rose, not the polite kind, but the kind that meant someone's expectations had just shifted. She glanced toward the cluster. Topkai was sitting forward now, the smirk gone, trying to reconcile the name on the screen with the girl he'd once tried to embarrass over second-hand shoes. Model after model emerged, each piece telling its own Lagos story. A skirt that defied the wind, a shirt built for Danfo commutes, a jacket lined with anchor where only the wearer could feel it. The Chapman motif moved like water, visible 1 second, hiding the next. Backstage, assistants worked in a ballet of pins, zips, and whispers. Adanna checked hems with quick hands. Smooth collars made sure no seam had the arrogance to misbehave under lights. As look 6 disappeared onto the runway, Lawson touched her shoulder. "It's yours now," she said. Adanna stepped out, the music folding into applause. It wasn't the hesitant clap you give a friend. It was the rhythmic swell of people caught up in the moment. Phones flashed, buyers nodded, and somewhere in the second row, she heard Chisholm's voice cut through. "That's my girl!" She reached the end of the runway and bowed. Not too low, not too long. Just enough to acknowledge that yes, she had built this, and yes, she was ready for what came next. As the applause ebbed, the host stepped forward with a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you've just seen is the work of the youngest designer to headline Lagos Fashion Week this year, Adanna Okoro." On the massive LED screen behind them, her name flared in bold gold letters. Cameras swung to capture her face, the models still arrayed like living sculptures around her. Lawson joined her, taking the MIC briefly. Talent is discipline plus vision. She has both. Remember this name, you'll see it again. In the crowd, Topkai shifted uncomfortably as whispers started. People were connecting dots. The viral glitter incident girl, the quiet student in Studio B, and the designer who had just opened Fashion Week were all the same person. Phones were already uploading side-by-side posts, from glitter prank to runway queen. By the next morning, her Instagram following had tripled. Fashion blogs ran headlines like "Quiet Fire Burns Bright" and "The Motif That Stole Lagos Fashion Week." A popular gossip page posted a split image, Tobkai grinning with glitter in the background, and Tobkai sitting slack-jawed in the audience during her reveal. The caption read, "Be careful who you spill on. Some stains turn into patterns." Even Professor Bankole stopped her outside the studio. "Your function now has flair," he said. "Keep the order. Don't let applause rearrange your lines." Brand emails trickled in. Collabs, interviews, wholesale orders. Lawson screened them, passing only the ones worth her time. Chisholm screened people in real life, glaring down anyone who tried to suddenly become Adanna's friend. Tobecha's name popped up on her phone twice. "Can we meet?" "Congrats. Let's talk." Both stayed unanswered. It was 3 days later, after buyers meeting in Ikoyi, that she saw him waiting outside the cafe she liked. No entourage, no sunglasses, just a man in a navy shirt, hands in his pockets. "Adanna," he said when she approached. "I wanted to apologize. Properly. I was stupid. And cruel. You didn't deserve it." She met his eyes. He was telling the truth as best he could. But she'd learned that apologies often serve the giver more than the receiver. "Thank you," she said simply, and offered her hand. He shook it. "Maybe we could." "I'm late for my next fitting," she said, smiling politely. She stepped past him, the sunlight catching faint Chapman blossoms stitched along her sleeve. She didn't look back. The city was loud ahead of her. Traffic, markets, opportunity. Her vow from weeks ago pulsed steady. Build work that makes rooms chase you. Today, she was walking into one of those rooms, and for the first time, it felt like it belonged to her. The end.